Okay, with us today, we are lucky enough to have Mark Losavio join us as our first official guest on the Aquatic Life podcast. Hey, Mark, how's it going?
Howdy, I'm doing well.
How's COVID treating you, Mark?
Not too bad. Staying indoors, washing my hands.
Right? I think I've invested more in soap in the last 2 months than I have in the last 2 years.
Well, I'll try not to go insane here, but so far so good. So I think, why don't we kind of start off with the typical Mark? Who are you? Give us a little bit of background about how you got into diving, where that's taken you since then. And I don't want to give anything away, but why don't you give us a high-level background of who you are?
All right, well, howdy, I'm Mark. I actually started diving in high school. And I'm from Kentucky, so I learned to dive in a swimming pool, and then I did our checkout dives in a place called Falling Rock Quarry.
Quarry dives.
Oh my God.
There were no falling rocks, thank God. It was pretty cool. I actually learned, it was a Christmas present from my mom.
That's awesome.
And it was a part of a school club called the Outdoor Adventure Club, which I didn't realize until later was a Boy Scout club. Because that summer they were doing a trip to Florida for like the real checkout dives that I, of course, was going to go on.
Of course.
And we got there to Isla Morada at the Florida Sea Base, which is, I guess, the Boy Scout headquarters kind of thing. And I had no idea. I was never part of Boy Scouts. I didn't know any of it. So I quickly joined and have 2 badges.
Are you an Eagle Scout now? Is that what you're going to tell us?
Not quite.
Okay.
So that was my senior year of high school, and then I went to the University of South Carolina for my undergrad, where I studied marine science. And I got there and was pretty shocked that there was no scuba diving club. And the school itself is like 2 hours away from the ocean, but it's still in South Carolina, so I figured there'd be a diving club. So I started one with my friend Emma, and we started off really slow with mostly lake dives, a spring break trip every other year. We did do a dive at the Georgia Aquarium with the whale sharks, which was pretty cool.
Wow,
That's
very
awesome.
cool.
I didn't participate because it was kind of out of my price range, but they gave me a really cool behind the scenes tour of the aquarium while everybody else was diving.
Awesome.
That's so cool.
And did some diving in South Africa when I did an internship on white sharks. Where else have I gone?
So where's that, in Durban or what did you?
My internship was in Mossel Bay, which is like equidistant from Port Elizabeth and Cape Town.
Okay.
So we did some diving there. That's where we did the cage dives and the seal dives. It was really cool. And then I did a dive in Cape Town with like the 6-gill sharks in the kelp forest.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
What was that like? That's awesome.
It was freezing cold. I was wearing 2 wetsuits.
You weren't wearing a dry suit?
No, I still don't know how to wear a dry suit. Like, I'm not like certified or anything. It was super cool. It was so beautiful. Lots of really like chill, lazy sharks.
Yeah.
And the snack on the boat when we were like returning to the dive locker was wings that were chutney flavored and delicious. They were delicious. I was blown away by how amazing it was.
Right on.
Chutney wings
awesome.
is a dive snack? I'm used to orange slices.
And South Africa.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm used to either mangoes or orange slices, or if you're lucky, you might have like some the little 6-pack of Oreos or Nutter Butters or something, or crackers. Yeah, but
what was diving with the 6-gill sharks like? Were there a lot of them, or tell us about the dive real quick.
There are a lot of them. They don't move very fast or very alarmingly, which I personally like. And it's easy to just swim because back then I had this mask that had those like side windows, so you could just like, you don't have to turn your head a whole lot, and it's easy to swim along with your buddy, and then slowly they turn into a shark and you don't realize it because they're the same size as like an adult human, and you have to go and retrace your steps.
Right.
That's awesome.
So while you were in South Africa studying white sharks, did you make it to False Bay and get to see some of the breaching, or?
We never went to False Bay, but we didn't have to go there because there was just as much activity in Mossel Bay.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, that's one of the things kind of on my to-do list is to make it to like False Bay or somewhere where you can get them breaching out of the water and just lay on the back of a boat and get some snaps.
I'd recommend going to Mossel Bay. They have a cool little like it's kind of like an aquarium, but it's really just like a giant shark tank pool,
Awesome.
I guess, with a bunch of like really tiny little sharks, and it's attached to this really delicious restaurant, Big Daddy's Grill.
Well, Mossel Bay is now on my list. I'm
up
jotting
to
it down
Mossel
right
Bay
now.
and Big Daddy's Grill.
Would recommend it.
Now, when you got certified, did you go through PADI, NAUI, SSI?
So I did my open water through NAUI.
Okay.
What seems like forever ago. Like I learned with dive tables and no calculators or computers.
Yeah.
And then when I went to college, I did my advanced rescue. I did a whole bunch of different certifications through SSI.
Okay.
And then in grad school, I don't know if this counts, but I am an AAUS certified diver.
Okay. Yep.
So I guess all over the place.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. They all count.
That's right. Yeah. So what tell us more about let's go back to your undergrad. So you got your marine science major. Tell us more about your marine science undergrad first, and what a marine science major involves and what you typically do with it once you get it.
So first I wanted to say that I was able to go to the University of South Carolina for pretty cheap because of this thing called the academic common market. Okay. Where you can take if there's a major that your state doesn't offer at any school, like Kentucky, you can take your in-state tuition and state scholarships to another school that participates and pay for it there. Wow. So I was able to go to South Carolina really cheap.
That's awesome.
And so marine science it's different from marine biology in that I studied a more like well-rounded oceanography style courses. And okay. If I wanted to study or focus on biology, I could, but we had to take all entry-level physics, chemistry, calculus, statistics, and then those equal marine science classes. So like chemical oceanography, physical oceanography, zoology, and all that great stuff.
So what are you going to apply that to as a life goal?
Well, I'd love to get a job in really anything now. But that it helped me get into a really good grad program.
Right.
A lot of the people I graduated with ended up working with like state departments in South Carolina, like environmental control.
Right.
But what I did was something weird with my degree. Right after I graduated, I worked in a public health laboratory. But after that, I did a year with AmeriCorps with this special program called New England Science and Sailing, which focused on teaching students in New London County about the ocean.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's fantastic.
I love that.
So that's really what I did. And then I went to grad school.
Okay. So yeah, now let's talk about your transition into grad school. You got your undergrad, you did that work. And so what did you consider and where did you end up?
So I actually applied to like 5,000 grad schools. I did not get into a lot because, to be honest, I didn't really have the best grades coming out of undergrad. But I applied to and almost got into VIMS with William and Mary, Florida State University. They have really good programs. Hawaii Pacific University and University of Hawaii at Manoa. Obviously very good programs. And then I applied to Northeastern University's program, mainly because AmeriCorps members get a free application.
Okay.
And it's a pretty reputable program, so I figured why not? Like, it's free.
Yeah.
For some reason, it worked out.
And so, what are you getting your graduate program? What's going to be your?
And you finished your grad program as well, right? Okay.
So the program I'm in is called the 3 Cs program.
Okay.
And it's like an accelerated, really intensified marine biology master's. And it's about 1.5 years of time. And it focuses on Northeastern universities, really, I guess, known for their experiential learning. Like, the undergraduates will take a semester off and do a co-op and intern at a company that their major is focused in. So for the 3 Cs program, what they do is they have you take 5 classes in the fall, the first fall of your program, in Massachusetts, in the Marine Station in Nahant. And then they take, 5 additional classes in Panama at the Smithsonian Institute for Tropical Research, and then 3 more classes at the Friday Harbor Labs at the University of Washington in Friday Harbor, Washington.
That's awesome. So you got around a little bit.
Holy moly.
Yes, a lot of travel. And then there's a 6-month internship that you do your research on and write up a thesis that can take place anywhere in the world.
And
that's awesome.
What was yours? What did you choose?
So I did my internship on outreach methods in China.
Very cool.
Where in China?
In Fujian province.
In Fujian.
It's kind of across the strait from Taiwan in a tiny fishing village called Dongshan.
Cool.
Okay.
And going back to, so you spent time in Panama as well?
Yes.
So what was that like?
That was amazing. I forgot to mention about the program is a big component of the program is scientific diving. And so everybody who participates in the program becomes, if you want to, like, you're not forced to, but if you want to, you can become a scientific diver with the American Academy of Underwater Sciences.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so all of the certification dives, the training dives, and the teaching dives happen in Massachusetts, which is fine, I guess. But the real dives, again. Yeah, it's cold, and I'm not a fan of the cold. It's pretty, but it's cold. But most of the teaching dives and the learning how to use the tools that you might use in the real world happens in Panama.
Very cool. Nice. So can you tell us, like, what, again, for us uninitiated that don't know much about marine biology at all anyway, what sort of things do you do for scientific diving? I assume you just carry out research experiments and things like that, but give us a little bit of a flavor of what sorts of things you worked on during that time.
Yes. So I guess the primary reason you would dive for marine biology is just to collect data. And there's a surprising large number of things that you can collect data on underwater. So you can, photo identification is probably the biggest thing, which was our first class for corals. You can do like identification transects to count and measure like populations of coral or fish. You can take nets down there, catch a sample of, say, like plankton in the water column, or like leave traps down there, algae settlement discs that you can leave down, go back the next year and collect and see what's growing on it. There was one lab where we were actually fishing for a particular species of fish underwater to capture and then breed in tanks in the lab.
For what purpose to capture and breed?
So we wanted to observe this species of fish is called the hamlet. What they like breed at a specific time of day. They always go out and like find a mate at dusk. So we would go out, catch them during the day, put them in tanks, wait till dusk, and then record them breeding to see what mating behaviors they exhibit and how successful which behavior is at getting a successful mate.
Fascinating. That's awesome. Have there been any other studies, even that, I guess, during the time that you were done, that were in the program that maybe that were particularly interesting, even if you didn't do it, that you were learning about, or just saw in the community was known and really fascinating to you that lay people like myself may not know about, that you could think of?
Well, so you probably may have heard about the massive coral bleaching event that occurred in 2016.
Yes.
A lot of the research that was covering that did come out of the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute, and it's still ongoing. Like, we still go out there and we still measure how much of a coral reef is still alive, how much of it is bleached, and we compare those numbers to like previous years that have done that research. And I don't want to say it's exciting to do that, because it's sad, but it's really cool to like participate in that.
For sure. No, that is exciting, because I mean, all you hear about it on the news is, oh, there's coral bleaching going on, but there's no numbers behind it. There's no idea of why. Like, to be actively involved in aggregating that data and knowing to what extent, and to know the details and the numbers is actually, and to be able to be part of producing it, that is fascinating. That's great. That's really very cool. I mean, like you said, it's a sad thing. It's a sad fact of, again, another aspect of our environment, like, heading in the wrong direction. But the more we have concrete scientific evidence, the better off we're going to be. So definitely a study that is going to make an impact, and that already has to some degree the attention of the public at large. So very, very, very cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. Question I was going to ask you about, to get back to your dive club. You started your dive club your freshman year of college?
I think so. I think it was either the end of my freshman year or the start of my sophomore year.
Right on. And how big of a group did you guys end up having when you graduated?
Like 25,
nice.
Maybe 20 people.
Nice. That's awesome.
And I still get emails. They're still meeting at least.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. If are you still active with the group that you graduated with and the group at school currently? Did the dive club continue once you left?
So the dive club is still going strong. I don't really participate in it that much, just because I'm an old fart. Like, I'm long gone. Right. I'm on the listserv.
But you're the godfather. Do they have a big picture on the wall, the painting of you in the background with a big pipe or something?
They should, maybe. I'll send them one.
There you go.
Perfect.
But I guess I'm really only still in contact with the other people who like helped me start it. But they live on other sides of the country, so we don't dive together anymore. It's sad.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things about graduating. Everybody tends to go their separate ways, and you don't catch up for a few years sometimes. But eventually you all it all comes back around, and you catch up, and you find that you have time to spend, whether it be on a 5-year anniversary trip or something like that.
Oh, for sure. I'm definitely, once I get a job, I'm going to try and plan a dive trip, because one of my friends, one of them currently works for NOAA, and she dives at the National Aquarium in Baltimore as a volunteer. But the other one is awesome. Like, she's a coral reef. Oh shoot, what does she do? Coral reef management and restoration fellow. Something like that. It's really impressive, and it's in Florida, and she's diving a lot. So
that's awesome.
Definitely going to go visit her.
Yeah, absolutely. Florida is a great place to dive. I lived in Key Largo for a couple of years. That's where I went through my my PADI IDC instructor training was in Key Largo. But another question I have for you was, have you thought about I'm sure you have thought about working for, like you said, your friend works for NOAA. Have you thought about working for NOAA, or do you want to work for a college or teach, or, what's your goal?
So my goal, it's kind of weird again. I kind of like, my long-term career goal is to be like a science communicator. But like on the level of like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye the Science Guy, kind of.
Nice.
because I've done a lot of teaching in schools and stuff with kids and children, and which is great, but I feel like more people than just children need to learn about science, especially
Absolutely.
nowadays.
Especially the ocean. I think most people tend to have this view of the ocean that they can only see the surface, and they really don't see nothing too wrong with the surface of the ocean, right? You know, they're like,
Yeah.
oh, there's some waves, it's pretty, sunset, whatever, but they don't see what's going on below the ocean with the chloral bleaching and species getting overfished and things like that. So I think what you're talking about would be fantastic.
So that also sounds like it tied into what you did as your thesis in China, right? With outreach methods.
Yeah. So I studied the lab I work in. He specializes one in climate forecasting, but he also specializes in like unique methods of outreach. And so he has this like virtual reality style outreach method that he has been pioneering. And it's been tested on students to see like, is this more effective than traditional lecture kind of thing? So I took that and did the same studies in China while also looking at how it impacts community adults instead of just the students.
Right on.
Very cool. And so were you able to reach a pretty, any conclusions on that to get the Cliff Notes version?
I'm still writing it.
Okay, cool.
But from what I can tell you now, it's honestly, it doesn't actually seem like it's any better or worse than traditional outreach programs, which I think is good because it's not a method that everybody has access to.
Right.
Right.
So you don't have to, nobody feels like they need to invest in the newest and greatest technology in order to get their point across.
Right. Good. Makes sense.
So when you were in Washington, did you get to do quite a bit of diving in Puget Sound or?
Yeah, I don't like the cold, and it was
I
like
understand. I don't either.
even colder, like easily the coldest diving I'd ever done, and I still did it. It was less involved with the classes at that point of the program, and more if there was anybody on campus who needed help with the research, you can volunteer and help participate, which I did, and I had my 8 mil suit, so I could only stay down for like 30 minutes.
Yeah,
but it really is like gorgeous diving. Like it's so beautiful.
It's so freezing.
It's so cold. And
what were the water temps like? Do you remember the average water temps when you were diving there? Ballpark.
I want to say 42 on one dive.
I want to note out of that one.
That was a shallow one too. Oh man.
I guess we can't complain here. Yeah, we can't complain in LA. Even when we dive in the summer times here, it's maybe gets down to the 50s, and that's no thanks. And
yeah, it's too cold.
It is. Even with the dry suit, I'm sure it's much better, but it's still not a fun experience. But like you said, you get such a different view versus tropical diving, kelp forests and totally different sets of coral, I'm assuming, and sea life, different fish,
absolutely,
right?
Yeah. It's even like vastly different than the environment on the East Coast, where it's like kind of the same temperature, and it's still, both of them are dominated by not corals, but like algae and seaweeds and plants. But it's still like so different. The animals that you find there and like the environment, the like structure of the dives, it's crazy.
Yeah, I think that probably has something to do with the ocean currents on the Pacific versus the Atlantic, because they're coming from opposite directions. Yes. Right. So it's being pulled down on the West Coast. It's being pulled down from Alaska and around and pulled down, where it's being pushed up from Florida and the Gulf. So I'd imagine you get a little bit more structure and a little bit different life and everything.
And our country, the way that it, I guess, forms into the ocean is shaped differently on both sides. So it's such a sharp drop off at Friday Harbor Labs. It's like the dive masters told me that 30 feet away from the dock is like a 40-foot dive. 100 feet away from the dock is like a 200-foot dive.
Right.
And it's just like crazy how that drops off so fast over there.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Now, did you have any run-in with any? I think the Humboldt Squid over there is supposed to be really, really feisty. Like they'll play around and try to take your mask off of you and stuff.
I didn't see any squid. We in Friday Harbor, we didn't go really anywhere far away from the labs themselves. Right. The furthest we went was to like an island across from us called Shaw Island.
Okay.
So we didn't really see any big, like, swimming creatures. Right. Although apparently a group after me did see seals on their dive, and the seals did harass them, but that's fine.
Isn't that always the case? You know, it's always the group before or the group after you that sees the cool things.
That's just the way it goes.
Right. So on your dives, what's some of the coolest memories that you have, whether it be, you know, a particular coral or animal that you had an interaction with, or just a particular dive that kind of like sits in your memory?
That's a hard question. But for our dives in Panama, which were much more rigorous, we did like 2 dives a day, almost every day. It was it was crazy. But at the end of the program, you go from the Caribbean side to the Smithsonian Station on the Pacific side that's on like a World Heritage Site island called Coiba. And so you spend a week there on Coiba, and basically all you do is dive because it's so remote. There's no electricity or cell phones or Wi-Fi or anything. And it's Pacific Ocean diving, but tropical diving, but different than like like you might be picturing a tropical Pacific diving might be, because it's on the eastern side.
Right.
And so like every site is vastly different, crazy animals. And my favorite dive that we don't really like to do anymore, but it's my favorite. It's called Molly Molly, and it was a high current dive, and that current was so strong that it was like not possible to swim against safely. So you literally had to like pull yourself up along the rocks across the reef to see anything. Which was so much fun.
Yeah.
It was so much fun to me to just like pull myself up like a rock skipper. Nobody else liked that dive though, so I don't think they do it anymore.
That's all right. Just adventurous. That's all. More adventurous than everyone else. Anything back to your graduate program? Any more interesting things about the 3Cs program that even if you didn't do, that's just kind of really jumps out as being really interesting about the work that they do, or there's classes or programs they offer?
Well, so it's a marine biology master's, but I think it's more marine science than biology because all the classes are so interdisciplinary. And then after the classes, you get to take your 6-month internship. That is, on the one hand, kind of intimidating because you have to organize and figure it out yourself, but on the other hand, you get to do absolutely anything you want. So like a couple members of my cohort, one girl did an internship on lionfish invasion in Bermuda, another guy did a lobster study in the Caribbean, shark tagging studies off the Cape of Massachusetts. One girl discovered a new species of squid in New Zealand, or described a new species of squid in New Zealand. Cool. They named it after Nicki Minaj. So, I mean, I guess that's the most exciting part of the program, but also
it's hard to beat that.
Yeah.
That's funny. Did you go to any interesting lectures by anyone that, you know, we as divers might consider famous, like Sylvia Earle or any of the Cousteaus or anything like that? Or
I wish, but I know a lot of my professors are very close to all those people. One of my professors who taught our oceanography class was on the, I don't know if you probably know this, the Mission 41 to the Aquarius habitat.
Yeah.
That was like a partnership, I think, between Northeastern and Florida International University or Florida Gulf Coast University.
I'd have to look it up to see, but that sounds right.
Whoever owns the Aquarius habitat, they were a part of that, so they are good friends with one of the Cousteaus and Sylvia Earle.
Right on.
Tell us about Dr. Ruth Gates. I had to look up this. I had asked you if you had any people that inspired you, and mentioned Dr. Ruth Gates, and so give us a little bit of information on the work that she did and why she's an inspiration to you.
I don't really know a whole lot about her. I just know that she is a really prominent and successful coral scientist, and her lab was the lab that like helped the discovery of, I don't know if you've ever heard of like super corals, corals that can show a resistance, I think, to like traumatic experiences in their environment. And there's like a movie about it on Netflix. And they usually take a lot of the 3C's interns. And she just, everything I've heard about her just seems like a really cool person. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
very cool.
For sure.
So you do dabble in underwater photography as well? I saw some. Tell us about that.
So I wish I could, but back when I started diving, getting a good picture underwater was an expensive and timely ordeal.
Yes.
And so when I did my checkout dives in Florida, I got like a crappy Kodak, like disposable underwater camera.
Yeah.
And all the pictures are truly awful, like absolutely terrible. But still the most amazing thing I had ever done.
Yep. Great memories.
But my mom, seeing my enthusiasm for Christmas, bought me a GoPro.
Nice.
A long time ago. It was one of the first GoPros, like the third iteration. It doesn't even have like a viewfinder or anything. And that's what I still use. Mm-hmm. And no offense, but they're not good at taking pictures at all. But they're very good at taking videos. So whenever I'm on a dive, I'll take like a 10-second video of whatever I'm looking at and then just like take a snapshot from that.
Yep. GoPros are, I think, fantastic. If you're wanting to record memories, which is great. I mean, I use them. I use them probably on every shoot and definitely on every dive. I just put one on top of my camera and let it run while I use my big DSLR to take photos. But yeah, they're great little cameras.
Yeah, it's hard to go wrong, and it's the best bang for your buck. You can shoot photos, you can get good video, and you don't have to worry about flooding a very expensive camera and a very expensive housing. They're cheap and they do a good enough job. And like Dalton said, you record an experience, and every once in a while you get lucky, just like taking photos in general. Sometimes the stars align, you get this great shot. And even if you don't, it's okay. It's still good enough to show your friends usually.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have like 5 million 10-second videos just from the last year. And there was a camera. So I graduated in December. Okay. And then
congratulations, by the way. Hey,
thank you. It's a rough time to enter the job market, but
yes.
I worked as a TA for the following cohort in Panama. Mm-hmm. And so I was allowed to use the official 3C's camera, which is fairly nice Olympus camera. It can only go to 30 feet, but it was a really good camera.
Yeah.
So I took some not too bad pictures on that one.
Right on. Right on. What's your one of your favorite pictures that you've gotten over the years?
Favorite picture, I think, would probably be just a couple months ago in March in Koiba. Took a picture. I took like 500 pictures of this sea turtle that got really up close to us on a snorkel.
All right on.
And I did take a bunch of short videos of this mangrove, I guess, mangrove forest edge that we were diving around. They're so pretty.
Yeah, absolutely. The way to see the root system in the water is really cool, and you get a lot of juveniles in there.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is a thing all over the world, but in that area of Panama, the mangroves are usually followed immediately by like a seagrass bed, which is then followed by a coral reef, so you can kind of like hit all the great areas in one dive.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
So it makes really great picture opportunities.
Yeah, it's not quite that way everywhere. I mean, because there's a ton of mangroves in the Florida Keys, but you'll get the mangroves, and then you'll get some seagrass and stuff, and then some sand. But usually you got to go out a bit to get to the good corals in the Keys.
So yeah, definitely very lucky to get the triple threat there, one right next to each other. That's awesome.
It's really nice. Plus the water is warm, which I gotta love.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
That's awesome. So what's next on your list for either for research purposes or for just for fun? What's next on your list of where you'd like to go for diving?
Where I'd like to go for diving. Gosh. I don't know. I've been so satisfied the past 2 years. It's hard for me to really want.
That's understandable.
I would like to get a dry suit because I really want to really appreciate the areas around me a bit more. The colder water diving, I think, can offer stuff that I am just not really willing to look into right now without a dry suit.
I think we're all in the same boat, Dalton, and I'm the same way. We're so bad. We should have so many more dives logged for local dives here because there is so much stuff to see in Southern California, but we just don't want to deal with a 7 mil wetsuit with a 5 mil hooded vest and deal with the cold temperatures. It's not appealing. So like we just need to get a dry. We keep saying,
and dry suits are so pricey.
Oh yeah.
Todd lucked out at the scuba show.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So ran a contest in Bear ran a contest for that 1 year. And you basically take a picture and post it on Instagram and you're entered to win. The problem that they didn't realize that there's no cell service at the scuba show. So no one was able to actually post any pictures.
Oh no.
Unless you remembered after you left the convention to go outside and post it. So
nice.
I was only one of 4 people that posted it. So I'm like, there's no way in heck that they're going to actually honor this contest because the entry fee was, there was only, I counted, there were only 4 people that posted it. And sure enough, they honored it. They gave me a custom dry suit, and my wife entered because there was multiple items. There was a dive watch, there was a wetsuit, a dry suit, and something else. My wife got a wetsuit from them for free because no one had.
Crazy.
She was the only one that posted for picture. So much props to Bear for. I would have canceled that if I was in their boots. I would have just canceled that program because of lack of entries. But they didn't. They honored it, and I ended up with this cool dry suit. So I don't have an excuse other than I want to go diving with my buddy when we go, and he hasn't gotten his dry suit yet. So, but long story short, we're the same way. We need to get our dry suits up and running
more,
so we can go and appreciate our local diving a lot more than we do.
Yep. Now, how far along are you in your, what's your highest rating certification for diving?
I don't know if rescue or nitrox or advanced is higher.
Rescue's probably your higher.
Okay.
Yeah, nitrox is its own thing on the side, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that a lot of the wetsuit and dry suit companies, if you are a dive professional or professional diver, which with your degree and stuff, I think professional diver would definitely fit into it. I know they give some pretty deep discounts on their dry suits, like half off or something like that.
Oh, wow.
So just something to think about.
Well, our university, our program got really lucky with a random donor who I don't know, but they donated, I guess, a large sum of money with the purpose of purchasing rental gear for students, because like
Nice.
one of the stipulations of accepting the program is that you either had to like buy your own gear, which is
Right.
kind of like
Yeah.
of a block for some people. But we were the first class to be offered rental gear, rental BCs, rental regulators, rental computers, and they're really nice, like way nicer than anything I would probably ever even need to use.
Nice.
And they just donated more money to have rental dry suits now.
That's awesome.
Which is really nice. But that you have to take a class in order to be allowed to use it.
Yeah, I was about to say, can you roll in one credit class? You can get the Well, that's awesome.
Right.
That's great of that donor to whoever he or she is to offer that to the students. That's fantastic.
Absolutely. And just another thing I'm sure our listeners would love to know about, how many dives do you have under your belt?
So before I started the program, I had like maybe 40.
Okay.
After the program, I think I have like 120.
Nice.
Oh,
So the
that's
program put you in some dives, huh?
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome.
That's fantastic. Outside of diving, any other things that you love to do? Any other types of adventurous activities other than scuba diving that you like to fill your time with?
Well, I do. Before I did the program, I wouldn't say that I like to hike, but I guess at some point along the like life history of the school, it's become a tradition to hike across like Panama.
Oh wow!
And then at the end of your time in Washington, you spend almost a week in Olympic National Park hiking up the mountains there.
Oh wow, that's awesome!
Wow, that must have been amazing.
So, which it was nice. It was beautiful and honestly not that difficult in Washington. But the hike in Panama, there's one volcano. It's the tallest peak in the country, and it is a killer hike.
Do you remember the elevation, like how much climbing you actually ended up having to do?
I want to say that it is at 11,000 feet, and you start at 3,000 feet, maybe.
Wow.
Oh wow, that's
it's like a 6-hour hike,
and that's just to get to the summit.
Yeah, it was.
That's crazy.
Or yeah, you start at 11 at night, so you can get to the top in time for sunrise.
Oh wow. So you did that at night?
Yes.
Wow, that's impressive.
Again, I did it twice because I went back to lead a second group.
Right.
Oh, that's awesome. That's fantastic.
So what else can you tell us about the, is it the AAUS, your student ambassador, school ambassador?
I'm a student ambassador for the program. I'm a diver for AAUS,
okay,
which is it's kind of like a dive organization that allows you to participate in and run scientific diving kind of outside of the like OSHA regulation umbrella. Right. And so in order to be an AAUS diver, you need to be a member of an institution that is a member of AAUS, which is usually like zoos, aquariums, and schools.
Right.
Or I guess police departments? No, not police departments. Just those other things.
Okay.
And I actually tried to start an AAUS program at the University of South Carolina because we were asked by a professor to collect data for him. But it's kind of a really long process, and it was longer than my time there. So
okay. And how is it being a student ambassador for your school?
It's not really as like official as it sounds. It's just if a student is interested in our school, they have no real way to contact current students because they're like on the other side of the planet.
Right.
So and like the people who will usually be in charge of briefing potential students is usually with them on the other side of the planet.
Right.
And I'm here right now. So
that's cool though. I think it's awesome that you're giving back to your diving community, to your school community.
Do you know how big the program is?
The program is capped at 20 people.
Okay.
Because any more than that underwater would give me a heart attack.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Now, I'm assuming that you guys have to do some additional safety protocols and stuff. Do you guys have to have a safety diver or anything with you when you have such a large group underwater?
So for that first semester, one of the classes you take it's called Diving Research Methods, and that's the class that turns you into a scientific diver. And when you are in training, I think, I'm not totally clear on the rules, but you need to have a certified AAUS diver with you for, I want to say 12 dives, and then you are a certified scientific diver for the first depth, which is 230 feet. And then if you want to get certified to 60 feet, you have to have 12 more dives that reach that depth with another AAUS diver who is certified to that depth.
Okay.
In terms of safety, there is a dive safety officer that's always around. She's usually actually leading the dives. And a dive program assistant who is there if she's not. And I think there are AAUS instructors level certification that can take that place.
Okay.
Other like standard stages have like dive recall, we always dive with flags, each buddy pair kind of thing, safety sausage, that stuff. Yeah. They don't like to take chances.
You can imagine.
Yeah. So if you're a student and you're in high school and you're thinking of marine biology, you're wanting to know about marine sciences and marine biology, where would you recommend or that they do some research, or where would you direct them to look into, or any thoughts of where they should start off?
What I did is when I turned 16, I got a job at my local pet store. Because it was like an exotic pet store where they had saltwater fish, and so that was my like fastest beeline. As soon as I turned 16, went right to the pet store and applied for a job. Got a fish tank.
Nice.
That was pretty much my exposure before going to college.
Right on.
But honestly, you don't need to like be a relative of Jacques Cousteau to like enter into the marine sciences. Like anybody can do it at any time, really.
Right.
That was one of the most interesting things about my major at USC was how many people of like so many different ages were taking the 101 courses with me.
Right on.
Yeah, so that's cool. So yeah, you don't have to be an expert professional diver or have any experience in the world. If you just have a fascination with it, there are opportunities and programs out there for you, regardless of how much experience that you've had up until that point.
Now, if I were a novice diver or just a random student, that's thinking about, wanting to learn a little bit more about either oceanography or marine biology, is there anything that you would recommend as far as like books or documentaries or something to just pick up to see if it's for me?
I mean,
Deep
obviously,
Deep Blue Sea, right? They should watch Deep Blue Sea. I'm thinking.
obviously, SpongeBob is
It's
the
SpongeBob.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Into the Blue.
Yes.
there's a ton of good documentaries like on Netflix that they're interesting, but I don't know if they would really like that's the interesting stuff is the stuff that gets on
Right.
TV. Like,
Of course. Of course.
like I worked for 2 years studying like copepods. That's not something you'll ever see on TV.
Right.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not, I wouldn't say it's necessarily representative of marine science. You can, and people do go in to study all of that stuff. And the stuff that people study, there can be a world-renowned expert on one species of snail that will appear in a nature documentary.
Right.
And that person's life is less scuba diving and watching that snail do its thing and more reading about 5,000 articles on things that might be related to the snail or things that eat the snail or that snail eats and how that interacts, and then writing a paper and then talking about it.
Right.
Which is, I'm all about it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm into that. And a lot of people are.
And a lot of people are, exactly.
Some people aren't.
Yeah. So, I mean, but that's the thing is the people we're talking to are you have a segment of people that just are all about the adventure, but then you have the people that are very scientifically minded, that those types of things are what fascinate them. So, yes, they're not, like you said, they're not going to get their own Netflix documentary on it, but there's still probably lots of books and things like that. And I think if you already have that idea that those are the types of things you're going to be studying, that shouldn't be too surprising. And that's probably going to be fascinating to a lot of people, as to understanding the why and the how of things that require lots and lots of very scientific research to be on it. So that's cool.
Yeah, and I feel like every diver likes, I mean, I know we all do the same thing, which is go down underwater and look at stuff, but like I feel like everybody still does it in their own way.
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
I love to do stuff underwater. Like, I love to fiddle with things. I love to like read temperature monitors, roll out transect tapes, like hammer things down. Like, I love to do things amongst a coral reef. Like, I don't know why, but that just like drives my boat. Other people don't like to do anything.
Yeah. Right. And there are some people that just like to float along and look at the pretty things,
Or not even. They just like to float and meditate.
Yeah,
meditate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And other people like to get in the water and just swim as fast as they can to see how far they can get down the reef before they, and that's one of the great things about what we do, is that there's something at the end of the day, we're all getting in the water and we're all, enjoying it and taking something back with us. And I lost my whole thought. It just went away.
Whoosh, like off in the current.
I started thinking about my dives. I'm like, oh yeah, diving. Oh, yeah.
So Dalton and I just did an episode on talking. We're just talking about gear acquisition syndrome and some of our favorite toys and pieces of dive gear. And you had just mentioned some fun scientific stuff that you probably been. What when I think of underwater diving related gear or toys and things like that, what are some of the fun things that you get to work with that aren't or even if they are, just that you like to have with you underwater?
Things that I just like to have with me underwater. Honestly, the most useful item, like the most commonly used item I have, is my catch bag, just to carry everything else.
Right.
Let's see, the most interesting thing I've used underwater. Probably things like pH meters and temperature meters, things like that.
Not something that Dalton and I usually bring with us when we're I mean, that's cool.
I like to have my slate, because sometimes I'm not good at my nonverbal communication, and other people are really good at making sounds, but I can't make noise. Like, I can't scream or talk through my reg. Other people can. Like, other people can make full words through the regulator, and I am not able to do that. I don't know why. I don't know what I can't do, but I cannot make sounds. So
you're not alone. You're not alone.
Yeah, the same way. It's more like ooh is pretty much all I get. And so Unless you have a slate with you, it's or if you're just pointing, look at this.
Yeah.
That's about all I can do. So I get it. So that's good. Yeah, dive slate's a good one too. Did you remember your thought, Dalton? Or are you
No, it's gone.
All right, no
That's
worries. Let me see if there's anything else real quick. I think this has been a really fascinating conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time to meet up with us, Mark. I tell you what, why don't you tell us what's next for you? You kind of alluded a little bit. You're looking for work and you give us some information, but yeah, what are the next steps for you? They're just gonna wait out and see where this coronavirus goes and COVID thing. And
I mean, I've been applying to a bunch of jobs, but nobody's probably in the mood for hiring right now.
Right.
There aren't even a lot of jobs like popping up these days. So I'm also like on call part-time with our university's outreach department, where they like will go to schools and like talk about the ocean and they host tours on campus and stuff, which obviously I'm not doing anything of because none of that's happening. So when things start to go back to normal, I can kind of go back to that and feed myself for a while I look for like a real job.
Yeah. Now, are you wanting to get involved with zoos or aquariums, or I mean, do you have are you just like a broad net that you're trying to get into? Or is there anything specific that you would like to?
It's a pretty broad net, mainly because I don't really necessarily know what I don't have like a lot of like other people when they say they want to be a marine ecologist. There are marine ecologists that they can Google and be like, okay, he took these steps to get that job. But like I don't really have a clear path towards what I want my career to be. So I'm just kind of like looking out for any opportunities that I think I'll be good at and will be good for me. Zoos and aquariums, the government, state government, anything, schools. I will say that aquariums and zoos are like notoriously hard to get jobs at. So probably won't be investing too much time there.
Why is that? Why are they hard to keep jobs at?
It's just because there's usually just one aquarium in a huge area, and because there's such popular places to visit and work at that they don't ever really need to do a rigorous search for hiring, because there's usually like a vast volunteer pool they can pick from.
A lot of volunteers. Yeah.
And so and obviously if there's a job opening, they're going to pick the guy who's qualified and has actually been working for you for 2 years over someone who hasn't.
Right.
So
of course. Yeah. That makes sense. I had assumed that it was going to have to do with the fact that most people are willing to volunteer their time to do what you would expect to be a full-time job anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. So
right on. Very, very cool. Well, hey, Mark, thanks for joining us. I think this has been fantastic insight into something that most of us regular divers don't really get to see. It's really, really fascinating. Thank you so much. Can you let us know, do you guys have any social media that you can tell people where they can find you or reach out to you?
Yeah, I have a Twitter, I guess. It's just Losavio M, my last name, and the letter M.
Awesome.
You have some of those GoPro shots on there that we can check out?
For sure. I've actually been meaning to dump a whole lot of my videos into the internet. So
all right, cool. Well, hopefully
we can. To that.
Yeah, we're hoping to look at maybe if you don't mind, we can throw some either links to, or maybe you can give us some to put on the show notes for our blog to show some of your work.
Sure thing. I'll try to find my rare gems.
Awesome.
Nice.
That sounds great.
Yeah, and anytime you're in Southern California or anywhere we're going to be at, and like Florida, usually we're warm water divers as well.
Yeah.
You're always welcome to come diving with us, bud.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Love to have you in a third, and we'll give you a camera to play around with when you go diving with. How about that?
Thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you later, Mark.
See you, Mark.
See you later. See ya.
Bye.